Hello guys and girls, how's it going? Screezilla here, and I hope you're all well, and you join me for everybody's favourite kind of episode, Bombing with Screezilla. Yes, it is a bombing episode, one of those absolutely fun, enjoyable, amazing, exciting videos, yes, where we fly a RAAF Lincoln. Yes, the RAAF Lincoln. Recently it's been buffed, basically. As of Project X, or 1.79, the RAAF Lincoln has actually got its proper payload at last, which is, well, almost its proper payload, but pretty much its proper payload, which consists of 14 MC. Now, this is the important part, because before it carried only 6, I think it was, GP 1000s. Now, the general purpose 1,000 pound bomb only has around about 220 kilograms of TNT, whereas the MP, the multi-purpose bomb for the British, the 1,000 pounder, had 240 kilograms of TNT. And the important thing about that number is in how much TNT you can use to destroy a base, because you need about 6,500, I think it is, roughly off the top of my head, to kill a base. And with the MC 1000, sorry, the GP 1000, that meant you couldn't do it with 3 bombs. Now, the GP 1000s are basically the same as the American 1,000 pounders, so you need to use 4 of them to destroy a base. Whereas the MC, sorry, not MP, MC, not actually sure what it stands for now, actually, but yeah, the MC, multi something or other. Anyway, the MC 1000 pounders are stronger, and therefore you only need 3 to destroy a base, which is incredibly useful. Now, I have done a couple of videos on the Lincoln before, and I've chatted about its history and a little bit. I don't think I've sort of, you know, just tinkered around with it really. And today's been a pretty incredible day for me. Especially for my bomber. Especially for my Lincoln. Today my Lincoln has made me a decent profit. Had 3 games today. And, well, I started the day on around about £9,000, sorry, 9,000 lions. No, 900,000 lions. Sorry, 900,000 lions. Sorry about that. So, we will get back to that later on in the video. Yes, indeedy. So the RAAF Lincoln. It was a bit of a odd plane. Basically, this is the Lancaster Mark IV. And that's initially what it was going to be. The RAAF Lincoln was initially going to be called the Lancaster Mark IV. And, well, 4 and 5. It was going to be a sort of new bomber, basically, for the Pacific campaign. And that's an important aspect of this plane, because the Lincoln was built in Australia, and it made it the largest 4-engined propeller plane ever built in Australia. To this day, in fact. I think it's actually the largest plane ever built in Australia as well. Yeah, it was the largest aircraft ever manufactured in Australia. Now we have a DO on us there. Doe just comes to greet us, Doe 335, and says hello. comes and sits on our tail, which is probably not a smart thing to do, because the RAAF Lincoln is a pretty vicious plane. It's got some very good guns to it. It does suffer a little bit, like all British planes, in the fact that it doesn't really have a belly turret. And that can affect it because it does mean that you're very vulnerable. You've got a very soft underbelly that's very easy to be attacked and bitten by enemy planes. Now just there you'll see there's a big lump under it, and that's your radar. Part of the radar system for the plane. Similar to the Halifax, in fact. If you have a look at the Halifax, it has that large bulbous lump underneath it. And it doesn't make it too pretty. You can see it there, the big old bulbous lump there, and you can see we've taken a bit of damage here. Now, unlike the Lancaster Mark III and Lancaster Mark I, when you get hit in the tail with a Lincoln, your plane doesn't just fall apart and crash. The other thing is when you get hit in a Lincoln, you actually tend to survive because the damage modelling is actually done a little bit better than some other planes. So that is very handy. Anyway, back to the topic on hand. Lincolns were made in Australia. Yes, the RAAF Lincoln was made by government aircraft factories at Fisherman Bend down in Melbourne. Now, unfortunately, there's no complete Lincolns in Australia anymore. Yeah, because they're all being scrapped or sort of sent away, or used as sort of junkers and things like that. And it's a real big shame. The Lincoln was basically chosen for the heavy bomber manufacturing in Australia. It was chosen because sort of the Australians were building the Mustang at the same time, and it sort of meant they could use sort of pretty much similar engines, which was useful. But the Australians were tasked with building Lancasters because the RAF needed heavy bombers out in the Pacific Ocean, of course, and because basically by sort of 1944, you know, the war was starting to wrap up in Europe, and 45 it was pretty much done. So the RAF were the RAAF and the RAF, of course, were needing a bomber that was capable of flying the same distances as the new American bomber, which was called the B-29. And the Lincoln was basically that. Now, originally, as I said, this was going to be a Lancaster. And basically what it was a Lancaster with extended wings, as you can see, extended wings. And if you look, you can see the similarities. It is basically the same cockpit, the same sort of layout, the same everything as a Lancaster. It's just a bit bigger. And that's basically what the Lincoln was. It was just designed to be a bit bigger. Bigger wingspan, bigger fuel tanks, of course, more fuel capability, and slightly better guns on board as well, you know, for defence. But it wasn't expected to really need to use those guns. It was sort of more for... They were there for basically making people feel better about themselves. You know, they didn't really think the Lincoln would have to defend itself too much. At that stage, you know, bombers were pretty much losing guns because they weren't needing them as much, because they found air superiority with escort fighters and all that sort of stuff. In February, in February of 1944, the Australians shifted production to the Lancaster, to the Lincoln Mark 30. Now, why it's called the Mark 30, I don't know. RAF. Some of the numberings and things like that, they're a little bit nonsensical. But anyway, so the Mark 30 Lincoln is what we have in game, which is basically the Mark 1 Lincoln. It's confusing. We'll just call it the Lincoln. the B2 Lincoln was, well, the Mark 30 was a Lincoln, was based on the Avro B2 Lincoln, but with differing Merlin engines. It was a little bit different, just because it was being built in Australia, of course. So in July of 1945, the Lincoln program was started, and 61 Lincoln bombers were set to be built, and 12 Avro Tudors were meant to be built. Now, what is an Avro Tudor, I hear you crying? Well, an Avro Tudor is basically a Lancaster, but with a pressurised cabin and seats inside. Yes, it was the passenger plane, developed by Avro. It was going to be the beautiful liner of the ocean liner of the skies, and I'm so disappointed it didn't get built and we didn't get to see them in force, because I would have loved to have seen a fleet of Avro Tudors flying. Gosh, you know, even going somewhere in a Tudor would have been amazing, you know. Like, yeah, sure, it'd be noisy because you've got those 4 Merlins sort of whirring beside you, but boy, that would be a beautiful symphony to listen to. It was pretty much dropped though in 1948, so the Australians produced a couple of extra Lincolns, so they ended up producing 73 Lincoln bombers in the end. The first 5 aircraft were assembled from imported Avro-built B2 parts, imported from the UK. The remainder were assembled from parts locally constructed at DAP, now named Government Aircraft Factory GAF, which was based at Fisherman Bend down in Melbourne. There was lots of subcontracting and things like that. It was a big deal for Australia, because Australia at the time were building bow forts and bow fighters, you know. They did start building the Mustang and things like that under license, but this was a different beast. This was a huge plane, and it was a very differing plane to build as well. You know, this isn't just a single-engined fighter or a, you know, twin-engine small bomber. This is a big 4-engine monster, and it's a lot of work that goes into these things. So the Australian-built GAF Mark 30 Lincolns flew on March 12th of 1946, and the remainder were delivered between 1947 and 1953, the last 12 aircraft being delivered as Mark 31 Lincolns, which were modified for maritime reconnaissance, basically. They were fitted with a 6.5-foot extension to the nose to accommodate a navigator, and there were 3 sonar buoy operators, and a further 7 existing Mark 30 Lincolns were also returned to factory and had similar modifications. So all up, 19 Lincolns were made into the maritime reconnaissance variant. They also, I believe, got rid of... No, they didn't get rid of the nose cone, actually. It was quite similar to the Shackleton, in all honesty. It was closer to the Shackleton than the Lincoln, almost. With strange things, the sort of Lancaster, it did go on for a very long time, especially with the Shackleton up in Scotland. She only retired in, I think it was the sort of late 90s or 2000s, I think, the last Shackleton retired, and that thing had been going for years. So the Mark 30 Lincoln served as the Royal Australian Air Force's primary bomber, with number 1, 2 and 6 squadrons forming the 82nd Wing in February of 1948. And the Lincolns replaced the sort of aging, wartime, beaten, 4-engined heavy bombers, the Liberators. Yes, the Consolidated. The Liberator. I'm just going to go with the Liberator because I can't say the word at the moment. So, the Lincoln actually did have a bit of a wartime jaunt, though. Although the Lincoln didn't get to really do anything in the Second World War, the Lincoln served as a massive bomber in the Malayan emergency, and spent 8 years undertaking nearly 4,000 sorties against communist terrorists at the time. Number 2 and 6 squadrons deployed their Lincolns in various duties, and the most common one was cloud chasing and testing of the atomic bombs that were let off in Australia in, I think it was Maralinga, I think. Maralinga? I have to double check because my brain is not working at full limit. Yeah, Maralinga. It's a remote area in South Australia, and basically served as a bit of a testing site for the British to hone their nuclear bombs on. I think there was 4 atomic blasts that were set off. Seven nuclear tests were performed there. So they were ranging from 1 to 27 kilotons of TNT equivalent. So relatively decent amount of radiation there. And it's up near the Emu Field, it's called, which is a place we do not speak of because the Emu Wars. Not even a nuke could stop those bastards. Yeah, not even nuking an emu could stop it, the bloody things. The Emu Field were basically in Victoria, and that was, I think, another test site for a couple of bombs. Basically made South Australia into an atomic wasteland, where we have deathclaws often running around. Right now there is one going through my bin outside. Bloody things are like raccoons, honestly. Anyway, back to Lincoln. So yeah, the Lincoln was used as a test bed for basically going up in the sort of high altitudes and seeing what was happening once they set off a big atomic blast, and seeing sort of, you know, if it made anything different up in the air, and, you know, little things like that. Oddly enough, it did. But, you know, that's another story. Now, the Mark 31 long-nose Lincolns were in service until about 1960, there we go, 1961, 1962, when the Lockheed Neptunes came over. And that was pretty much the end of the Lincoln in Australia, unfortunately. Number 2 and 6 squadrons had replaced their Lincolns with freshly made GAF Canberra bombers. Yes, the Canberra jet bomber was actually made in Australia as well. We made some. Well, Australia made some. Well, I can say we. I live in Australia. I'm basically Australian now. Now, absolutely massive thank you to Big Boy here, Biggie Boy, and also to Damon 3. I'll mention him a couple of times, I'm sure, but just made this flight a lot more enjoyable. Basically, we had a good formation going, and one of the reasons I wanted to record this video actually is because I wanted to get some shots of it. So, unfortunately, no examples of the biggest plane ever manufactured in Australia exist in Australia anymore. Now, the Australian Aviation Museum, National Aviation Museum, has actually been given some parts. They've been offered donations of disassembled remains of a former British Avro B2 Lincoln from RAAF 342 to be used as the basis of a restoration and display for the Australian museum, and that's something that's very much going on. I'm not sure how they're actually going on that one. They're rebuilding it basically, and doing an amazing job. You know, they're really trying their best, but it's a big old undertaking. You know, so they've got the RAAF Lincoln, and it's basically in New Zealand. Bits of it are in New Zealand. You know, it's not fully there yet. It's on loan, I think, in New Zealand, and you know they're still trying to get bits and bobs for it to get it completely made up. And in the comments below, I'm just going to put a link down for Australia's National Aviation Museum for donations. Because they sort of would really like it. Now, just here you can see me just opening my Bombay doors, and just got a little Spitfire friend there, just wanting to have a little look underneath us and look inside of us and look in our belly, look in the belly of the beast. But yeah, basically the National Aviation Museum is basically restoring and getting it back to full condition. Well, not full condition, but just some form of condition. And that's based at Moorabbin, Victorian Airport, anyway. Based in Victoria, in Melbourne sort of area. Yeah, so it's basically sort of a really interesting plane, really. You know, it's one of those planes that you just don't really see much of. Much like the Shackleton. You know, the Shackleton didn't really get much. There we go, we just got a Spitfire there, just having a look underneath us. Just look down below. So yeah, beautiful little formation flying here. You know, it's just, you know, when you've got a person being a complete numpty like Edge #1 over there, who's just basically sitting on his airfield and, you know, making the game last longer than it should, it's nice to have some decent players around you who actually, you know, just kind of enjoy flying for what it is, you know, in the game. It's an enjoyable little part of the of the game, and this is why I love bombers. You know, sorry, I'm just bumbling on today, really. It's just enjoyable sometimes. I do like just flying in this game. It's just lovely, you know. It's just nice to hear the Merlins roar and all that sort of stuff. But as I said, the Lincoln does have a very decent sort of military history. And actually, it went on to work with Argentina. I have said this in a couple of other videos as well. I think Argentina have one on display in Buenos Aires. I believe that's one of the few remaining ones. There's only about 4 left. So there's one down at Cosford, RAAF Cosford Museum in Britain, in the UK. There's 2 in Argentina, and Australia has 1 stored and the nose section of 1 up in the Camden Museum of Aviation, Narellan in New South Wales. But as I say, unfortunately there are not really many left, and it's a real big shame. As I say, it's a plane that really doesn't get much love. and you can sort of understand it. It's a bit sort of different, and it's not exactly, you know, not exactly the most beautiful of the planes. It doesn't have the beautiful lines of a Lancaster, and as I say, much like a Shackleton as well. You know, the Shackleton didn't have the sort of the looks that Lancaster was blessed with. The Lancaster was a very pretty plane. You know, there is no doubting the beauty of a Lancaster. It's just a very simple, elegant plane. Whereas, you know, the Lincoln just doesn't really have that appeal to it. Let's just turn off markers here, and just got a lovely Mustang there. And just having a bit of a cruise along, really. It's just a nice little feeling. So right now, what I'm doing in this game is actually trying to win via bombing. Because of the numpty on the enemy team. Sorry, I just got to try and remember what I've got set for turning off my HUD stuff. I don't have it set because I've had to restart things. Ah, well, we can do that another day. Yeah, no, that's not working. But yeah, it's just a it's a really annoying thing to do, and you get Bombers players doing this as well, of being extremely passive in their gameplay, and it really can ruin the whole experience. It ruins games because it makes them drag out for ages, really. I mean, as you can see, this game is going on for a long time, and I'm not too fussed with that as a bomber pilot because it means I get to do a couple of runs with my bombs, but it just yeah, it does get very frustrating. And this guy is just flying around about, you know, 1,000, 2,000 feet from the airfield, you know, just keeping really close, and basically making it so you can't really go down there because the amount of flak you get on this map is ridiculous. If I turn back on the markers right now, you'll sort of see where this dickhead is flying around. He's just sort of below us, and you know, this guy's not done anything for the game. He didn't do anything all game. Like, this guy's made 217 points, you know, and he's just basically wasting everybody's time, you know, and it's just very frustrating. You know, people were actually, there were a couple of Spitfires actually flying down there, sort of egging him for a one-on-one, you know, and he just wouldn't accept anything. So, get my bombs out, return to home, you know, done all I can do. Unfortunately, it does take 3 payloads to destroy the airfield with the Lincoln, and the Lancaster as well, in that fact. If you're working together with a B-29, you can do it in pretty much one run. If the B-29 takes out the bases and then drops the last remaining bombs on the airfield, you can sort of manage to do it in about sort of one return run. So it's yeah, it's annoying sometimes. It is nice to get a victory via airfield, but luckily I was on a really good team, and I must say everybody on this team was absolutely fantastic. Biggie Boy, XO, Soy 750, you know, and Demin 3, you know, were absolutely lovely. We were chang away and just having a bit of a chinwag, really. You know, and that's what I like about this game sometimes, is you can just relax and just not have the stress. You know, that's the thing I like about bombing as well, is just having that sort of ease to just enjoy yourself rather than this sort of constant fighting. Fighters can be a bit stressful sometimes, and the Lincoln is a good way of relieving that stress, I find. it's very capable of defending itself when it needs to. It's got a good speed to it. It's got a really good payload now. Now they've actually fixed the payload. And it's well worth playing. Yeah, that's really it. So you will just cruise along a little bit more and just enjoy the beautiful drone of the Merlin. You know, as you can see here, we've taken a bit of a pounding, and that's just from that flak. You know, it's just ridiculous. Airfields are just so overpowered sometimes. You know, this was about 8,000 feet. You know, so relatively decent altitude, and you know, anti-aircraft guns, yes, were quite effective, but in their numbers, they had to be, you know, masses of numbers really to have any effect, and the amount of anti-aircraft guns on the airfields well below that. You know, they're very it's very frustrating sometimes. The AAA in this game, it's not very good. Basically, it really does affect you as a pilot, because, you know, as I say, you just get some idiot that just goes and sits on the airfield or just flies around the airfield for, you know, 30 minutes and wastes everybody's time really. And, well, I say waste every time. It's basically made a really good game for me, as you'll see at the end. We'll see at the end. It's made a very good game for me. But for the fighter pilots, it's very frustrating, because it can really destroy their sort of, you know, because they're basically going for quick games usually, trying to get things out, and it's just annoying. But sometimes you just need to sit back and actually enjoy this game for what it is, and just enjoy the flying aspects. You know, it's a very easy flying game. You know, you know, especially in realistic battles, you don't need a joystick, you don't need everything like that. You can just handle it with a mouse and a keyboard and just cruise along. So, the video's wrapping up now. So, well, this section, and we'll hop to the end. This is pretty much the end of the game here. As you can see, everybody did pretty well, other than this dickhead who wasted everybody's time and did nothing all game. Although he did make more points than 4 other players on his team, so that's something, I guess. Yeah, that's not a good thing to say. We ended up with 1 kill, which is always handy, and double the points of anybody else, just because of the sheer TNT drop of our bomb load there. So thanks to the B-29 as well. Without his sacrifice and bomb dropping, we would not have got this victory. So that is the win for us, and as you can see, some good rewards. Anti-mech on hand for Damon there. Biggie Boy got final blow, best squad, and best squad for XOXO as well. So, you know, some good points there, and bulletproof and terror of the sky for myself. So we will hop to the end of this episode. So all in all, today, with 4 flights in the Lincoln, I've made about 500,000 lions. Well, about 400,000 lions in total. This game, as you can see, almost a 2k game, a 200k game, sorry. You know, ridiculous amount. I'm quite happy with that. And also a fair amount of research towards the Venom. I didn't even have a booster actually activated for this, so 15,000 research points for the Sea Venom, so I'm pretty happy with that. Really good game that was, actually. Really enjoyed that, and sorry, I've just got to do that before I forget, because otherwise I'll forget, and I'll delete the replay and I'll be really annoyed. But yeah, that was a really good flight, so I must absolutely say thank you to Big Boy, and I think it was Damon Free there, yeah. Big thank you to both of them for keeping me company there. Lovely flight. Huge negative to Edge 1. And this is what you do with these kind of people, is you go type. and you just send complaints about passive behaviour to anyone that does that, really. As you can see, Katia here, the bomber on the German team, he just landed and Jade out, and that's honestly the thing you should do in these situations. Don't be a dick, basically. Just be decent. You know, like, there's not much you need to do in flying a bomber. You just have to be respectful and decent to other people. You can make a big difference to a game. Look, we've got a kill in that game. We took points down by taking the airfield down, and we made a lot of profit from it, as you can see. Awards of bulletproof, so that's not bad. And Terror of the Sky, I do love that. That's the third time today I've got that for the Lincoln. But yeah, as you can see, just ridiculous amount of reward, basically. It's time consuming sometimes playing a bomber, you know, like, but I do enjoy it, and it's part of the game that I really do love. And now the Lincoln has the correct payload, it really makes a difference. And as you can see, you can really make a good profit by basically getting your TNT damage up. That's the thing that makes you the money. Of course, if you get a kill as well, you know, you do get a bit of money, but as you can see, that's peanuts compared to what we made for basically taking down the base. I mean, you get reward modifiers, of course, for killing a plane and winning the game. So you do earn some decent money, but it can be really profitable running a bomber. So we made, well, that's all profit there. You can see the amount we lost for rearming, which was about 3,000 lions, which is not much at all, really, compared to what we've earned there. And yeah, that's one of the beauties about this plane. Let's just head to the hangar quickly, and we will get some research as well done from that. Yeah, enormous amount of research there too. That was an epic game, in all honesty. That's my best game today. I wish I was running the 3,000 lion booster for this game rather than my first game, but still, it's been a very profitable day for 3 games in this Lincoln. You know, you can go for increased lift. It's quite handy having the increased lift and the reduction in drag in these bombers. It can really help. Strengthening can really help too. It's something I do recommend for people, because it does help the plane stick together when you're being shot at. But engines are very handy. Engines do help a lot, but I'm going to go for the wings just because the increased lift efficiency and the drag reduction. You can see here you get a bit more. You actually get more speed with the wing research. But the thing about the Lincoln is it just turns so well. I mean, you can really surprise people with that. So we'll get that, and I reckon we'll get engine or airframe next. I think I'm actually going to go down the engine route. Yeah, I think I'll go down the engine route for that one. So yeah, it's just a ridiculous game. Of course, I do have a premium account, of course, and that does help a little bit. Premium accounts do give you that little bit extra, of course, but still pretty amazing. One of the biggest weaknesses of the Lincoln, though, is it has no armour, really. There's no armour for the gunners, and that's where you generally fall down. I got lucky with that Doe. He was pretty much going for my wings rather than my fuselage. If he was actually knew what he was doing, he would have just basically come up underneath me and just shot along this section here, and it would have killed all my gunners. And that's the biggest problem with having the Lincoln, is you do lose your gunners quite often. So you do need a relatively good crew skill, and your gunners, you want to make sure that they have good vitality as well, because you will be finding that really helps you a lot. One of the other important things for a bomber as well is weapon maintenance. This is something people forget. With weapon maintenance, it means that your bombs are a little bit more accurate, so it really does help in that respect. Pilot, not too sort of needed, but it can come in handy. G-force and stamina is not really much of an issue, in all honesty, and you don't need more. The experienced gunners, there's no point in maxing it out. It doesn't make any difference. It just means the number of gunners you actually get. For British planes, that you only need 4. That's the maximum amount of gunners you have, and that's in the Lancaster, I think, or Lancaster and Halifax. Yeah, so you don't need to max that out. There's no point. It's just a waste of points, really, doing that. Of course, this is actually my bomber slot for also my Canberra as well. So with my Canberra, I need G tolerance and stamina and stuff like that. But having reload speed as well does help, again, with your gunners reloading their weapons, things like that. And as I say, logistics is one of those things that people always look over, but really go for it. It's really handy to get this section up, because one, your guns jam less, secondary, your bombers don't scatter as much. So yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed that little bit of formation, and I hope you have a good time, and I will catch you all next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.